Hi there everyone, welcome to Creative Coloring with Erum. Today I have a beautiful card to share with you. I'll be using artist alcohol markers and I'll also be using the coloring stencils to add color to the image. Stay tuned. I'll be using the Blushing Magnolias stamp set. It has 3 beautiful florals. It also has a coloring stencil and has an add-on die that you can purchase separately. So I wanted to share with you this card that I created and I love how it turned out. Absolutely enjoyed coloring this. And I wanted to recreate this again to share it with you all. A simpler version. I'm not going to color 2 florals again, but I'm going to color just one and just to show you how I did the first card. So I've cut out a panel of classic pressed solar white cardstock. Then I will stamp the image in pink diamond crisp dye ink. The reason I'm using light color ink is because I want to achieve a no line look. Now, if you want to use black ink, go ahead and do that. If you want to use a darker pink ink, you can do that too. This is completely up to you. Now, after placing the stencil, you need to ink the top side of the petal light and the bottom side of the petal dark. For the top side, I'm going to use pink diamond crisp dye ink, and for the bottom side, I'm going to use a Razzleberry Crisp Dye Ink. Now be careful when you are doing this through the stencil, because when you are adding your ink in C1, it's completely fine. You're just going to add the dark ink, starting with Razzleberry. And you can be carefree when you are adding the ink because all these areas are the bottom side of the petal and these are going to be dark. And once I'm done, I'll move to the C2 portion of the stencil. This petal is going to be dark in color because this is the bottom side, the underside of the petal. And these areas are going to be lighter because these are the top side of the petals. Now moving the stencil again and moving over to C3, you will see that the petal that's on the right hand side, the bottom right, that is going to be dark because that's the underside of the petal. And the 2 that are on the top left, those are going to be lighter. And the very small area on the bottom right, that's going to be light. Be very careful if you want to mask it of that small area, you can completely do that. For the branch, I'll use dark chocolate crisp dye ink, and in some places I'll add darker inking. I'll be very splotchy with this. Then I'll also use moss crisp dye ink and add that to the branch as well to give it a little bit of a mossy look so that it's not completely brown. You do not have to cover the entire branch in the green ink, but just some areas just to make it appear patchy. For the coloring, I'll start by adding Razzleberry, which is the darkest marker, and I'll add this to the petal that is the innermost. And I'll start by adding color to the back side of the petal. I'll add it in a V shape first, and then I'll add it in a flicking motion. First, make that V and then add flicks. Extend it as much as you want to, but don't overdo it. Create that depth where the base is so that you get that definition. And remember that the marker lightens, so we can go back in again later on once the ink dries. The next color that I'll add is Ruby Light, and make sure not to add that onto the dark area where we added that V because we want to maintain that depth and dark color. So start adding that pigment from somewhere in the middle to soften the darker flicks. You can also add this to the tip. Next, take Pinkalicious artist alcohol marker and soften those streaks that you added, the flicks, so that they don't look like streaks as such and blend with the base color, the ink color that we added earlier. At this point, you do not have to add anything else. Remember that this is still wet. It will take time to settle, so you do not have to overwork this right now. Your base ink is already there. It will do the work for you. Now I'll move on to the next petal, repeating the same thing again so that you can look at it once more. We do not need the lightest marker right now. I've kept that for the lighter petals. And you can add the lighter marker if you want to, but not now. And I'll also show you one more thing later on. I'll repeat the steps again. We'll start with by adding the V with the darkest marker, which is Razzleberry in this case. Now, if you have another darker marker, you can start with that too. Then I'll take Rubellite and soften the flicks, the ends of the flicks, not the point where I started to add the Razzleberry. And extend those flicks, and then you use the Pinkalicious to soften the flicks. Since Pinkalicious is lighter than the inking on the petal, it kind of, blends the entire thing. You do not have to overwork. For the lighter portions, the upper side of the petal, the top side, I will use Pinkalicious and add that in a V form to the base of the petal, to areas where I want to show depth. I'm not going to add a lot of flicks or extend those flicks out because I really want to add those light petals and keep them light. Then I will use the Pink Diamond Artist Alcohol marker, which is the lightest one, and extend those flicks of Pinkalicious. As you can see, I am extending the flicks and they are pretty visible on the light Pink Diamond ink. The inks and the markers are slightly different. The ink is lighter. Okay, for now, I will leave the flower as is. I will let the ink on the lighter petals settle and dry. I will then do something with the flicks to soften that. I will come to this in a bit, but first I'll color the branch, add details to it. On to the branch, and for this I'm using a completely different color palette. I went for the Majestic Garden Artist Alcohol marker set. So I'll use the darkest marker first, which is the Mangrove Fruit, and this is a different type of coloring that I'll be doing. All I'm doing is adding specks and dots, and I'll add this to where I want to show shadows, which is going to be at the base of the petal, somewhere on the bends and on the ridges of this branch. Then next to it, I will add Sea Forest. I'll make sure to leave some of the inking visible. I'm going to keep working on this by adding the lighter markers too, and adding more stippling till I'm happy with the look. Once done, I'll go back in with the Razzleberry, the darkest pink marker that I have, and add dark detail to the depths, to the innermost parts of the petal, adding that V again and extending it out if I want to, maybe defining that edge a bit more, or adding a deeper curled or fold somewhere, and you will see it appear right away as I add to it. Don't worry too much if it becomes too prominent, because it looks prominent right now. Once it dries, it won't look as prominent or stark. Give it time to dry. Now we move on to the lighter petals, and I will show you how to blend those harsh flicks of Pink Diamond that I added. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the Colorless blender, and I'm going to add that to the tips of the flicks, and I'm going to add this very softly. Not going to overdo this, because if you keep on adding those flicks of Colorless blender again and again to the same area, it's just going to kind of take away the inking. Since the Colorless blender has a lot of concentration of alcohol, and I'm going to show you how it looks on the darker petals. I'll add streaks of this on the darker petal, and you'll see how it lightens. Can you see how it just adds the highlight to the dark petal? It looks beautiful. It just adds a touch of highlight there. So if you want to add highlight to some areas, you can do this. And I'm being very light-handed, just using the tip to add the ink. For original card, I actually use the spine scissors to fussy cut my image, and I think I liked that better. But I know a lot of people don't like to fussy cut, so for you guys, I'm going to die cut this image. I also went ahead and stamped and die cut the sentiment, and also die cut a few circles using the Pine Rings Circle die set. I'll use whatever yellow ink I have on my blending brush and add this to the edges of my circle die cut. You can use Sunray Crisp Dye Ink. Remember, when inking on the edge, you bring it slightly inwards, but keep the center plain so that it appears dome-like. I will add black paint splatters. For this, I will use jet black ink spray. Later on, I decided to add 2 more circles because I wasn't feeling the one circle look. I hope you enjoyed the tutorial and I really hope you would give this a try. Please don't forget to check the description for the next stop on the hop. There are prizes and there's tons of inspiration too. Thanks so much for watching. Bye.
Hello there! Did that video just spark your creativity? And do you want more project ideas and inspiration videos too? Well, if you do, please make sure that you subscribe to the Altenew YouTube channel. Also, make sure that you do click that notification bell so you don't miss a video. Thanks so much for watching. Bye bye!